When I say the phrase criminal overlord, you're probably picturing in your head a mafia or a criminal organization of some sort. Maybe you're thinking of the Italian mafia in New York circa 1900s, or the Yakuza, or the Mexican cartel, whose reputation amongst the rural poor in Mexico actually parallels that of Robin Hood. Whether it's correct or not, many rural Mexicans have a favorable view of the cartel because they provide social services to those marginalized people who feel like their government has left them behind. Or maybe you think of the white collar criminals in the upper echelons of our society, the ones who Harvey Dent was nervous to go after. But when I say the words criminal overlords here, these are not the kinds of organizations and people I speak of. Rather, the criminal overlords of our city are your run of the mill thugs who have been given over the keys to the city by the feeble minded who infantilize them and shun the actual victims. And to be certain, these street thugs, they have no honor code like the mafia. Their only loyalty is to their base instincts. And we here in Philadelphia have let these lowest common denominators dictate how we live for too long, thanks to a district attorney who prefers it this way. And so to drive this point home, I want to tell you what I have seen, what I've experienced, and to relay to those living in posh suburban areas, as well as in rural America, information regarding the level of decay that is manifesting in some of our major historical cities. I first came here for law school. And the instance I recall where I first had the thought that Philly was nowhere like I've previously lived, LA, Queens, and of course Asia, was when I first rode the Market Frankfurt line on my way to school. Needles strewn about on the floor of the subway stations. People knocked down on benches in such a way that you can tell is from narcotics, with their mouth agape and all that. This one time, some asshole lit up inside a train car filled with people, and then I smelled it and I was like, this doesn't smell like weed. And then this woman next to me, I can never forget this, just said casually, without even looking up from her phone, it's crack. Train car, packed with people. Crazy behavior. And of course, people lighting up cigarettes and weed in the train cars is a near daily occurrence. But no, that's just the appetizer. A general aura of chaos and disorder pervades much of the city. You might have heard of Kensington, a neighborhood in Philadelphia that has turned into a zombie town, made national news. Well, guess what? I avoid that area like the plague, and I still see that kind of stuff too often. The things that you've seen on the news, I've seen in real life. I've drove past a ransacked fine wine and good spirits and wondered to myself, what does booze have to do with protesting police brutality? What does the Apple Store? Maybe you're thinking to yourself, those good-for-nothing looters are just taking advantage of the situation and they don't really care about the issue because if they did, they wouldn't do this. Oh, but sir, please. The obvious went out the window as soon as we started calling these looting smash and grabs. An aura of disorder and chaos. Do you know how many times I've seen young men and teenage boys around here who gather in droves, wear ski masks in the middle of summer? Aren't you guys hot? And they ride around on dirt bikes, ATV, all these off-road vehicles without license plates or, let's be real, driver's licenses. And it's not that they do this, okay? I really could not give a shit. Congregate in the hundreds for all I care. That's your freedom, okay? My problem is, it's how they go about it with complete disregard for the rules of the road and the cars and the pedestrians around them, okay? I think they get this sick pleasure out of purposefully antagonizing everyone else on the road. And you can bet your ass they've removed their mufflers so that your ears may also enjoy what your eyes are. Hey guys, I don't know if you think this is cool, but everyone else around you, they're not looking at you with envy or something like that. They just think you're a dick, okay? I've seen this countless times around City Hall, around University City, and if you go up to North Philly where I've commuted for work, you see it like once a week, especially if you hang around in the nighttime. I see all the time, some beat up car with a dark tint on the front windshield, so you can't even see who's driving, and they're driving up the wrong side of the road on Broad Street at full speeds. Why? Because they can't be bothered to wait, to pull up, to turn a quarter, and the lane opposite is empty. And nobody cares, apparently. That's why. Some of these cars, I swear, they're probably the Kia boys. So in what way do these criminals run Philly? By that, I mean that criminals feel free to do whatever they want because enforcement of the law is lacking. And I want to make myself crystal clear on this point. None of this is the fault of the Philadelphia Police Department. In fact, I see time and time again the sheer level of disrespect they have to face on a day-to-day basis where people aren't extending even the basic courtesy one would expect from and towards another human being. Okay? And I know some people say, what about the cops and their disregard for black lives? I'm sorry. I don't buy the idea that systemic racism is to blame for the disparate results we see in the criminal justice system. It's a lie. And honestly, I'm sick of hearing about it. So just get out of here with that crap. I'm talking about something else right now. What I'm talking about is how people treat cops in the city. So I'll give you an example. Sometimes I ride up and down Broad Street to commute for work. And when I'm going by the Temple University neighborhood at night, whenever there's an event, like a concert or something, a lot of young people are out on the streets, scantily clad women, men in a circle, toking up, you get the picture. And invariably, because there are so many people, there are cop cars stationed and, like a group of 4 to 5 officers standing in straight line on the street. And you know what I see often? I see these groups of young adults passing by these cops. The cops haven't said a word to them. And then these people start some shit with the cops with some antagonizing comment. The type of stuff their bitch ass would never say if they were alone. Hey, in my multiple experience having interacted with the Philadelphia police as the victim of a crime, they've been nothing but respectful. And you might say, well, that's because of your privilege. No. I also don't buy that. Respectfully, it's not my privilege, it's your attitude. Cops are people, and people react negatively to hostile attitude. Elementary, my dear Watson. How about a deal? Check your attitude, and I'll check my non-existent privilege. But all this is not to say that I had the best experience with the Philadelphia police. Really though, the problems that I see relates to the police being underfunded and overburdened, as in, they're not able to respond to minor quality of life crimes, which matter, nor are they able to adequately address even things like simple assault because they're operating with a budget that is severely lacking for a city that is infested with crime. Give you some examples. Starting out with something really minor. I rent a parking space. And in Philly, you have to get a car ticketed before you can call a tow. Which, by the way, really annoys me when someone parks in my space. I always say, if you want to de-radicalize a Marxist, give him a parking space. I mean, when you come home from a long shift and you see a car parked in your spot, oh my god, I get pissed. That person is stealing your time. And you know why I feel like I have the right to be mad? Because I used to not have a parking space. Sometimes I would have to circle the block for 10, 15, 20 minutes to find a spot to park overnight. And in all my time doing all that, it never occurred to me to just park in someone else's space. But on the rare occasions, and it's gotten rarer since I've gotten a couple cars towed, so satisfying. But on the rare occasions I see a car parked in my spot, I call the cops. And sometimes it takes them 2-3 hours to come and to get the car, especially if it's late at night. And I have to stay up for them and wait because only then can I call the tow. And if you're parked in my spot, I'm calling the tow. Again, I know it's not their fault if they're busy prioritizing serious stuff. Still frustrating. And it's not just the minor quality of life crimes, again, which still matter. A couple years ago, I was assaulted by a 5'8" black homeless man. I was walking the underpass at the Fashion District. He was walking towards me from the opposite end. I wasn't even looking at him, I was looking at my phone. And when he got close, he swung and missed. Still counts as an assault. And I fell to the ground, dodging him. I confronted him, and I recorded him. And I left when he said something that made me think he was going to pull out a knife. I went to the police station and filed a police report. I showed them the video. And they said that a detective would call me within the week. Nobody called. And the officer who was taking down my statement said, "Why didn't you call for 911 at the scene?" Well, I didn't mention this to him, but it's because of what happened to my friend, who was sucker punched in front of City Hall. And City Hall in Philadelphia is at the geographical center of the entire city. He called the cops, and I am not exaggerating, it took them an hour to get to him. Even though he incurred a severe injury whose damage lasted for months. So I went to the police station because A, I had to leave because the guy was going to pull out a knife, and B, I'm not going to sit around and wait for God knows how long. I want to get on with my day. But again, nothing came of this. No one called. And you know what the most frustrating part of this is? I've seen that bastard who assaulted me a couple times in Center City. I didn't call the cops because, truthfully, I don't have the wherewithal to deal with all that. I worry people are going to pull out their little phones and make me look like the bad guy for getting a black homeless man arrested because he just has to be the victim in the eyes of some. Really messed up. And despite all of this, again, I cannot help but root for the Philadelphia police when I see day after day some shootout that's left 7 people injured near Temple, saw on the local news around a couple weeks ago, or when I hear gunshots in the parts of North Philly where all the Korean businesses are located. The silver lining here is now I can distinguish between a gunshot and a firecracker. Would I be willing to have a job where I literally don't know if today might be my last? Probably not. So I can only commend these officers who put their lives on the line for you and me. You know who I blame? I blame the district attorney of my city, Larry Krasner. Krasner, who in my mind has had a lot to do with metastasizing this deadly trend of progressive prosecution, he's the reason why so many have not had justice for what has happened to them. And let me be really clear. Despite what Mr. Krasner and his lackeys might tell you, the working poor who have been victimized by street thugs, they want these criminals in jail. But that goes in one ear and out the other with Mr. Krasner. No, that's not what the people want, he tells himself. When people are victimized, Mr. Krasner victimizes them again. And of course, he has a frosty relationship with the police. Duh. Because as soon as there's some misconduct on the part of the police, he'll gleefully hop in front of a camera, and it's not a learning moment for him. It's an opportunity. He's a politician as much as he is an attorney. He's doing all this, but he turns his back on the police when push comes to shove. And I've never seen a district attorney who doesn't have the cops back, who doesn't think of the police as co-equal partners on the same mission. I've never seen a DA who is like that do an effective job. Sanctimonious virtue signaling at the expense of your co-partner in mission to enforce the law. You don't care about doing a good job. You care about what you can go back and tell your loony base. Of course, he's not going to have their backs. He thinks of them as his enemies. He's not going to say that, but of course he thinks that. He thinks of these criminals as his buddies. Or worse yet, his dependents. Yeah, that's what our city needs. A guy who thinks like that as our district attorney. We need more of this. Please, more of the restorative justice circle nonsense. If the criminal sits with the victim in a circle and the victim recounts how hurt he was, oh my God, that just opens the floodgates of tear and regret, and the criminal's also crying because he feels bad, and they live happily ever after. Is this a straw man? Nope. This is exactly how these restorative justice folks think, including Mr. Krasner. Loony, the whole lot of them. What I'm trying to tell you is today, your average hoodlum has reign over the historical city of Philadelphia, the birthplace of this country. Quite the shame. I see chaos and disorder all too often here. Many crimes go undetected by the police because people don't bother reporting them. Why? The police can't respond. They're severely underfunded relative to the mess they have to deal with. They get disrespected on a day-to-day basis by the petulant man-children we call citizens who antagonize them for no reason. You can tell these maturity-challenged adults had no education at home on the proper way to behave out in society, and the rest of us are paying for the nuisance cost of their parents' failures. And on top of that, we have a district attorney who doesn't care that most people cannot stand criminals and don't want to be around them. He doesn't care because he believes in a festering, elitist, out-of-touch ideology whose consequences he and his Rittenhouse Square buddies will not have to bear. Mr. Krasner needs to go. And when it comes time for his re-election in 2026, I will support whoever of sound mind opposes it. And to those who are watching who do not live in our great city, please keep our city in your thoughts. Yeah, I've had my problems with Philly, but I still love the city for what it represents. It's the city where I've had the most growth, it's where I made the biggest accomplishments to date, and it's where people I love live. And so I'm rooting for Philadelphia. And more importantly, I am rooting for the people of Philadelphia to take our city back from the criminals and the public servants who enable them. Hey, thanks for watching.